scariest night of the year, October 31st. A night full of goblins and ghosts and thrills and terrors. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. It's just a night you can kind of cut loose, let everything go, and just kind of have fun within a reasonable, I think. This is why I decided to learn more about it, and I'm going to tell you about a little brief history of Halloween from the original festival of Samhain that the Celts celebrated, to the Irish traditions that followed, and then to the traditions that were brought to the United States and how it kind of morphed into what we have today. While many believe Halloween is a festival of evil and Satanism, it's not the case. It originated from the Irish festival of Samhain, which was a kind of end of the year festival. The harvest is over and now like winter's starting. You can kind of see the calendar here. It's a Celtic tradition, which the Celts are made up of like Irish and Scots up in the northern part of the British Isles. Samhain literally translates to when the summer goes. So as you can see in their calendar, it's the end of the year. Now, the darkness aspect of Halloween comes from the fact that the Celts believed that the summer was the light part of the year, where the winter was the dark. And on this time, also on this day of the year, that's when they believed the veil between our world and the underworld to be thinnest. That's where they get the ideas of all the ghouls and like spirits that come through on that night. They also believe, just like in the Day of the Dead, that sometimes their ancestors can come through the veil and they come back to their own house, and they'll generally have a spot set out for them in their house to welcome them. Samhain, there's nothing overly like the ideas about human sacrifice and the ritualistic sacrifice on this day are no different than any of the other Celtic holidays. There's nothing special about it that would make it feel any more like why there's like the rituals. There is also animal slaughter associated with the day, but many believe that that is just because they would not have the food to feed the livestock during the winter months, so instead of trying to ration the feed, they would just kill them. And after the Celts, they, through time, they slowly became the Irish and the Scots, who continued to celebrate a version of Samhain, which came to be known as Halloween. It also, when the Irish started to, or continued to celebrate, it started to become known by other names, such as Hollantide, Halloween, Hallie, or All Hallows Eve. It's also seen as the end of the year, just like the Celts, following in their tradition, that it's the end of summer, end of the harvest, and now winter is coming. In the days leading up to Halloween, the Irish practiced what they call Halloween rhyming, just kind of like our trick-or-treating, but they would generally go up to a house and you would say a rhyme in hopes of getting something. Like a traditional old rhyme is, Halloween is coming and the geese are getting fat. Please put a penny in my old man's hat. If you haven't got a penny, a halfpenny will do. And if you haven't got a halfpenny, then God bless you. And your old man too. Which I found in the book, Halloween. Now also along with the Halloween rhyming, you had Halloween pranking, which is the trick or treat, or the trick part. And with the pranking, the big common one was what we refer to as ding-dong ditching. I read about a story. They actually tied a piece of thread to a woman's house, to her door knocker, and they would pull it every time she'd come out, and then they'd wait a little bit and keep doing the same thing. They would also steal things, place them in odd places. Like, big thing was stealing gates from fences and placing them on roofs. Placing things on roof was a very common practice. Also, on the day, once they got to the day of the 31st, is when they started having parties, and the parties generally were centered around a large bonfire from like wood and stuff that was collected through the weeks leading up to the 31st. They also played many games. There was bobbing for apples, which some of you still may do at Halloween parties, and they had another game where they would try to bite the apple on a string, which obviously a little different. This is more modern than the picture, but it was the best one I could find. They also played games that tried to divine the future. They were mostly related to like marriage and possible spouses. When the Irish started emigrating to other places, they brought their traditions with you, and that's where we got Halloween in the U.S. It didn't really gain traction until the mid to late 19th century, but then it caught on very quickly, and by the end of the first decade in the 20th century, 1910, the Halloween had spread coast to coast. Before that, it was just viewed as a mainly immigrant, like ethnic holiday. As the popularity in the United States grew, it slowly became more sterile. The pranking was starting to get out of hand, and people were getting upset by it, and so we started having more parties and communities holding things to try to just keep the commotion down. And also through Halloween's sterilization, that's when retailers started to get into it, and they started selling. That's where the candy and everything came from, your Halloween like decorations. Halloween is just it's a very joyous night of the year, but it all comes to an end when the sun rises. It has a rich history through Samhain and the Celts to the Irish that followed, and what they brought to the United States. And remember to watch out for what goes bump in the night.